Hello and welcome. So, what kind of leader is Sir Keir Starmer? What type of leadership style is he adopting? A couple of months ago, I made a very short video near Parliament in London in which I asked the question about the new Labour government. Would they be filled with Popinjays, Piranhas or Philanthropists? The reason that I made that video was in part because it looked like the government was going to be cutting winter fuel payments to pensioners. And that surprised me for a Labour government. And I worried that maybe things were not going to be much different. Maybe, in fact, they would get a little bit worse. So, before we talk about Sir Keir's leadership style, or what I think it is, let's just look at this article from the 11th of September 2024. Reeves defends, that's Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, £4,400 heating claim for second home amid pensioner winter fuel payment cuts. The article goes on. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has faced criticism after justifying her decision to claim £4,400 in taxpayer-funded expenses for heating her second home, a day after MPs voted to scrap winter fuel payments of up to £300 for millions of pensioners. The decision comes as the government moves to cut benefits for pensioners while maintaining expense claims for MPs. Now, I said at the time and in that video, if the government are transparent and allow the populace to understand the figures, to say it's an open book, here's what's going on, and this is not couched in rhetoric and political spin, then maybe people would at least understand in a little bit more detail how they had reached this conclusion. And also, I have to say that I don't think for a second that being an MP is an easy job, not for a lot of them anyway. And it's high pressure, or can be. It can be extremely stressful. And of course, if they have to be in two locations to help them serve constituents in the country, then I don't see anything in of itself of claiming expenses. Most of us in a position where we had a job like that, ignore the fact it's politics, would probably claim the expenses, given that chance, or Chancellor. But the issue here is that the optics of this are not good, because it's not really clear what the machinations behind the scenes of the government have been to cause them to consider such a in my opinion, odd edict to be issued that this is actually going to happen. These pensioners will get those payments cut. And I appreciate there are some exceptions to this, and the government has been scrambling recently to say, yeah, okay, there are other ways that you can do this. If you're eligible, we'll find a way to get money to those who are really at risk, etc. So good, but the optics of this, not good. It really smacks of us and them, this elite and the great unwashed. So anyway, what I want to draw your attention to now is an exchange between Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer about the winter fuel payments. And this exchange, I've just edited it to the beginning question, the start of the answer, and then the next question. And let me go through it. Let's see what you think.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Labour MPs voted to remove the winter fuel payment from over 10 million British pensioners, including those with just £13,000 of income. With that decision debated and made, it is now important that the House understands the full consequences of the government's choice. So can I very specifically ask the Prime Minister, will he now publish the impact assessment before the House rises?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is this. They left a £22 billion black hole.
Oh, he didn't answer the question. So let's see what Rishi does next, asks next, and whether Sir Keir will answer this time.
Obviously, the government would not have made this decision without an impact analysis. And yesterday, the Energy Minister confirmed that. So I ask, very simply again, why won't he publish the assessment now?
Mr. Speaker, I remember the days when the Conservative Party was to be concerned about balancing the books. They've left a £22 billion black hole.
Oh, he's not going to answer the question for the second time. And we get this stuff about it's their fault, maybe, and the particular issues that the government has in terms of this black hole, but he's not answering the question. So what happens next?
Mr. Speaker, they're shouting now, but those arguments didn't even convince 50 of his own MPs, who suddenly found that they had urgent business elsewhere yesterday, Mr. Speaker. But we know why he's hiding the impact assessment. The Labour Party's own previous analysis claimed that this policy could cause 3,850 deaths. So are the numbers in his impact assessment higher or lower than that?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're taking this decision to stabilise the economy. That means we can...
So once again, absolutely no direct answer to that question. What happens then?
Mr. Speaker, today pensioners watching will have seen that the Prime Minister has repeatedly refused to admit or to publish the consequences of his decision.
And I expected more. No, actually, no. I didn't expect more. I hoped for more from Labour. And I worried that what would happen is what we're seeing. Once more, if they want to win the hearts and minds, if they want the populace to feel that this is a government who are actually there to serve, remember that's why they're there, same as the Tories were allegedly there to serve. If they want people to feel that, to have the country united, they've got to listen. They've got to listen, they've got to explain, they've got to be transparent. Let's go on to looking at leadership styles. I'm going to look at simply the overview from this article, 6 common leadership styles and how to decide which one to use when. And I'm choosing it because I think these are nice and pithy, different enough, and I believe we can at least take a guess at where Sir Keir is coming from in terms of leadership style. So if we start at the bottom, coaching leadership style, which focuses on developing people for the future. Great. Now, I don't see him doing that. Maybe he is behind the scenes. Maybe he hasn't had time. But coaching is about asking questions, amongst other things. How are you doing? How did that go? Oh, what do you need to help for next time? What might you change? And I'll do whatever I can to help you be as good as you can be, to get you on the road towards or even reach your full potential. I'm not seeing that. And to be fair, that's important. I may not understand what's going on in certain quarters because it's not been visible to me. And indeed, it is early days. But in terms of a coaching style overall, in terms of how he is conducting himself in interviews and when he is giving speeches, I'm not seeing it. Maybe there hasn't been the opportunity. So I'm not going to get into ad hominem stuff. I want to be as fair as possible with this. Next up, democratic leadership style, which involves creating consensus. No, not seeing that at all. Maybe early days. Maybe there are all sorts of groups being set up to understand what is going on in terms of the temperature of the nation. And once more, to be fair to Keir Starmer, he has had some things to deal with immediately. And so this could be going on, but at the moment he doesn't look like he's adopting a sort of consensus-driven leadership style. Up next, affiliate leadership style, which centres around building emotional bonds. Again, no, I haven't seen any of that at all. Perhaps once more, early days. But I would say that emotional bonds, I'm not really feeling any. The government seems to be lacking a bit of heart and soul and indeed emotional content. It seems quite robotic and sterile, and Keir himself comes across, as I had noted already, of course, as being a little bit sterile, a little bit without passion, a little bit without connection. And that could be because he's highly educated, he's a deep thinker, everything is considered. It could be that. But when you're leading, I believe you've got to connect to the hearts and minds of the people that you're leading. And I'm definitely not seeing that. Pace setting leadership style, which involves expecting excellence and self-direction. Well, with that one, he has made decisions, some decisions pretty quickly. He's done things pretty quickly. So, to be fair again, he does seem to have set some pace in certain areas. Whether one agrees with the pace that's being set or not is a different thing. In terms of expecting excellence and self-direction, don't know, too early to say. Behind the scenes with staff, etc., maybe he's doing all of these things, coaching and being democratic, looking for consensus. But it certainly hasn't come across anywhere else, and indeed, therefore, it is really difficult to say whether he expects excellence and self-direction. So maybe that one will come out. Maybe it's a non sequitur in terms of his position in the country. Authoritative leadership style, which is about mobilizing people toward a vision. Well, he does seem to be authoritative in terms of style. That's for sure. So I say definitely that seems to be the approach that he's taking so far. Mobilizing people toward a vision, well, I'm glad the article mentioned that, because in terms of leadership, generally speaking, you have a vision. You have something that you're heading towards, and you want people to be mobilized. But once more, you need to mobilize them via the hearts and minds. They need to want to come on board. They need to feel a connection with you, that emotional thing. They need to think, we're in this together. We're heading in that direction, and it looks good. It looks great. It looks like something that I really want to get involved in. And maybe that would unlock this self-direction and excellence, searching for excellence ourselves, to be as good as we can be, to get involved in this cause for this country, whatever it may be, to clean up the countryside or to make the environment cleaner, whatever. But I'm really, really, really not seeing that at all. In fact, what he has done recently is deliver a speech which was doom and gloom. And it's going to be tough, it's going to be difficult. Now, once more, in his defence, I would say it is important to be realistic, but you've got to be optimistically realistic or realistically optimistic, not delusional. So it's good that he's steering away from that. But you've got to have some joy here. You've got to have some emotion. You've got to have something that we're saying, hey, because the country is going to be like this. We will have these gains. Things will be better. How so? But when it's all about, well, it's all their fault, the Tories, and I'm going to keep on repeating that and repeating it and repeating it, and that's why it's going to be miserable. Well, I think you need something else. You amidst the times may be quite austere, you need to have some joy. You need to have some vim, vigor, energy, laughter, fun. I'm not seeing it. Then, at the top, we have coercive leadership style, which entails demanding immediate compliance. Oh yes, definitely seen that. And, of course, fairly recently, there were some riots, and Keir, so in terms of pace setting and straight out the blocks, pulled the lever that he's very familiar with in terms of the law, the courts, sentencing. Now, let me say up front that there was a tragedy that took place, absolutely appalling, and that seemed to spark a lot of unrest. And I say seemed to, I mean, it did, but other people, maybe they just were out and about creating mischief. But for a lot of people, that was some kind of flashpoint, a trigger. But let's not forget, there was a terrible tragedy. In terms of the riots, I thought that it was shocking. I thought it was just a disgrace, the way the police were treated. They're doing the job. Still, thank goodness, we police by consent. They are us, we are them, they're the citizens. They walk and work among us. And does that mean to say that every person in the force is perfect? No, absolutely not. Are they doing a job, a difficult job? Yes, for sure. And to see that, I thought was, it just was ghastly, the whole thing. However, Keir has, as I say, leapt out the starting blocks and swiftly got people through the court system. Are these just the people who maybe like a riot or have difficulty controlling their anger, and that's the only way they can express it is to do what they did, which I'm not condoning whatsoever? The steam escapes from the pressure cooker, but below that, people who are peaceable are getting pretty hot under the collar. And the reason that I say that is because if we look at this particular article here, immigration tops the list of issues that Britons consider most important for the first time since 2016, when Britain voted to leave the European Union following riots this month. Just over a third of Britons, 34%, named immigration as the biggest issue, ahead of healthcare on 30%, the economy on 29%, crime on 25%, and inflation on 20%. The August edition of the monthly Ipsos Issues Index showed. And so Keir can pull the big lever, the legislative lever, and say, hey, I'm sending a message that's not acceptable. And certainly appears to have been effective, but it doesn't take away what's under the surface. Those people who are bothered about those people who are not rioting. There does seem to be that sense in the air with quite a lot of people, as we can see, that there's something about immigration which needs to be addressed. And Keir must listen to that. If you keep on saying, just do what I say, I'm making decisions, and the implication is, oh, I know best, we know best, that is absolutely not the way to govern, in my opinion, in a democratic society at all. For some things, yeah, make those decisions. For other things, listen. You need to sit down, you need to listen, you need to talk, you need to connect with the emotions, you need to show that you genuinely care.